Neorealism as a cinema has been hard to define since its inception. Many different definitions can be used, from the golden age of Italian cinema to a new form of realism birthed from World War II, highlighting poor and working class people, or a technical aesthetic with an emphasis on post-production. Above all, the major purpose of neorealism was to attempt to capture the present reality of personal stories in Italy. The continuous Italian paradox of trying to fabricate an authentic reality has plagued filmmakers for generations. The period came about during the Second World War, as the population faced the terrors of fascism and poverty, and filmmakers like Sica and Antonioni captured the underbelly of the nation's disarray through personal stories and the use of unprofessional actors. As time went on, neorealism stepped down from its place as the ideal, and Italian filmmakers looked to broaden their cinema and incorporate and build upon new elements. Post-neorealism is a cinema of exploration of the form of film itself, as well as an attempt to push the boundaries of what understanding reality through film could mean. If we fantasize and think abstractly in our own lives, why isn't magic realism accurate to reality? And if we in our own lives act without melodrama, wouldn't it be more accurate to reality to play into subtlety instead? Miracle in Milan by Sica and L'Avventura by Antonioni, among many others, try to answer these questions, synthesizing the genre of neorealism, continuing to use its cinematic language while incorporating elements that expand our understanding of reality and its purpose and methodology in film. The structure of the narrative arc of neorealism film was drastically different from that of conventional storytelling. It prioritized a lifelike atmosphere where characters were not agents of action, and instead go through real-life events in order to move along their arc. Lower-class, regular people's stories were prioritized in neorealism as well. Many characters are people on the fray, living poor and deeply affected by fascist elements in the underbelly of Italian culture. Miracle in Milan and L'Avventura split this. Miracle in Milan utilizes a more Hollywood, conventional storytelling arc, and the structure of L'Avventura's plot is even more left of center than many of the neorealist films that came before it. L'Avventura's use of grandiose ancient relics, architecture, and art creates an immense emptiness for its characters to get lost in, both literally and visually. This atmosphere is a symbol of juxtaposition and of connection between the contemporary and the traditional. That the characters' modern problems reflect those of ancient love and tragedy that took place in the same spaces where the modern Italian now experiences their own daily lives and struggles. In Italian film in the past, an emphasis was placed on ancient Italian culture and history to create an idea of a unified Italy. The neorealist filmmaker continued this, although they began to realize its fascist implications. The post-neorealist filmmaker, on the other hand, expanded this tactic both personally and universally. As well as the more secular understanding of Italian history, both L'Avventura and Miracle in Milan build on characteristics and symbols of Catholicism. Toto is framed as a Christ figure throughout, and one could argue his mother is framed as a Mother Mary. He receives the doves, a religious symbol of the Holy Spirit, and he rallies his people with singing and spreading abundant joy and positivity. The final scene of L'Avventura is reminiscent of the Pietà, where Claudia consoles Sandro with an outstretched arm on the bench, looking out on the vast sea of Roman architecture in the hours of the morning. Symbolism is incredibly important in the thematic resonance of Miracle in Milan. Each symbol has a myriad of interpretations and meanings throughout, including the sun, the moon, water, fire, shoes, the hat, the song about how life is beautiful, and singing in general. All these symbols also stay in that realm of baseline needs. We need the sun, we need water, we need clothes to wear on our bodies. It's the bare minimum, but they're still fighting to get it. We see the first major hint of the importance of the sun when everyone runs to huddle in the tiny pockets of sun during the winter. Later, they have to purchase a seat to watch the sunset in the village, where one man's upset because he has to purchase a seat in his own chair. Toto talks many times about how he'll get the maid from the village anything she wants, including the moon. Items of clothing like the hat figure prominently, as when the swarm of hats kills the man who in the first act was a poor member of the village, and in the second act worked with Mobby and ended up hurting his former neighbors. The shoes are also a large theme. In the song the villagers sang, one of the lines says, "As long as we have the shoes on our feet," and the maid asks for new shoes, but Toto's only able to give her one, as the greed of the other villagers caused Toto not to give anything else out. One of the most symbolically intense scenes of all time is when the villagers find a geyser of water and rejoice, but it turns out to be gasoline, and they still rejoice, as it has a high profit margin. This play of fire and water, the pollution of what the villagers thought was the purest, most basic substance they need for survival, shows the collective optimistic spirit of the villagers as they find the lasting benefits of any situation, no matter how much it could have hurt them. De Sica attacks these real-life topics with fantasy and symbolic grandeur, for humor, surrealism, and for a better understanding of not only the absurd reality of class and poverty, but the absurdity of class and poverty itself. He still portrays reality, but with a different perspective at its framework. We all have fantasies, and the addition of fantasy creates more of a subconscious allegory for each scene. Greed is shown to be negative, unrelated to class, though. No one who's greedy has a good ending, especially the guy getting literally attacked by the hats at the end. Mobby's screwed after they all escape. The people who wanted the big furniture couldn't actually get it in their home, and their greed causes an angry mob and stops the maid from getting the shoes she wants. While using neorealist techniques visually to create an off-kilter narrative arc, a story where nothing really happens, L'Avventura removes melodramatic elements and instead utilizes the phenomenological, psychoanalytical, and avant-garde currents emergent in Italian culture in the late 50s, but which previously had no significant representation in film. As Claudia says, words are more and more pointless. They create misunderstandings. The topics of character discussion are littered with philosophical tenets, and there are many parables in Miracle in Milan and in L'Avventura. Contrary to that of neorealist films like The Bicycle Thief, where we see characters learn lessons through the daily motions of their life, post-neorealist films inject a greater philosophical meaning into their dialogue. By utilizing the medium to separate the audience from the characters just enough, we can better see and understand the big picture, enough for us to start to think about these topics and discuss them ourselves. And L'Avventura, the understanding of topics like men versus women, love versus sexuality, and power versus objectification come through the creation of situations and visual elements that use the characters as metaphors. This is seen in the two scenes of Claudia and Gloria, where it feels like an endless number of faceless, nameless men are pointing and gawking at them, othering and objectifying the women. Claudia and Gloria's conflicting reactions also show an understanding of their character. Gloria's positive response, waving and smiling and responding to questions, both shows her acceptance of her place as a female celebrity and her eager sexuality that gets her and Sandro in trouble with Claudia at the end of the film. Claudia herself is incredibly uncomfortable by the stairs, and the scene itself feels much more tense and eerie, as if these men are closing in on her. She's going through a major struggle in her life, overanalyzing every part of it after her friend goes missing amidst her affair with Sandro. Claudia is coming to terms not only with her current circumstances, but the general predatory nature of the men around her. Throughout the sheer number of conversations on love and sex between men and women, between both main characters or as side conversations, we gradually witness as an audience the moral understanding that the men in the story can be very base and sexual, projecting it onto the women around them. The men don't understand women can be more complicated, and women are seen as objects by thousands of replaceable men, Sandro included. They're all the same. Post-neorealism allows directors and writers to meditate on issues they're interested in, without always giving one complete answer. Here, De Sica and Antonioni take back agency, understanding themselves and their characters as individuals, not just as masses of humans. The other directors of the time looked for introspection into the self and the subconscious, about work and labor, and psychedelica and religion. They also branched out into other genres, like spaghetti westerns, science fiction, and giallo. The modern understanding of reality culminates in that there is no one objective reality, and instead each individual's own perceptions and sensations, associations, and memories are different versions of reality. This is what expands neorealism into what it ultimately could be after the height of the movement: an analysis and celebration of one's interests, desires, fantasies, and life. Thanks so much for watching this video, and happy holidays! This is another video adapted from a paper for my Italian cinemas class back in 2020, where I also did projects on Fellini's Juliet of the Spirits and Il Pasto, so let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in seeing some of those come to life. It's been a bit since I posted, but I literally have like 4 videos in the works, so stick around in 2023 for a ton of new stuff. As always, if you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe, and thanks again for watching this video.